Beer League. That's all it is. You're Mikko Rantanen. NHL is just Beer League. Scoring goals, no problem. Setting up plays, yeah, no problem. We got this. Lead the Dallas Stars. 1-0 series lead against Winnipeg last night. No problem. The numbers are spectacular. Welcome to the show, by the way. Still in Washington, one more day off to Florida tomorrow. 8 goals, 7 assists, 15 points. Mikko Rantanen. And yes, I am one of those annoying guys that likes to keep track of Conn Smythe favorites all the way through the playoffs. No one's touching Rantanen right now. So 15 points from Mikko Rantanen. 1 game into the second round. 8 goals, 6 assists in his last 4 games. Zach, this is spectacular. A goal or an assist in Dallas's last 12 goals. He was double shifted last night. We saw him take his regular shift. We saw him sneak in on the fourth line every now and then, which is rare, by the way. The one thing about Peter DeBoer that we do know historically is he does a great job managing his bench. Nobody generally gets over 20 minutes, and nobody gets under 10. I know that Donoff was at 8-something last night, but that's rare. Normally, he keeps everybody between 10 and 20. But double shifting Rantanen last night, and how can you not double shift someone when you are on, as we like to call it in the NHL, a heater? Beer League, Zach. That's what it is for Mikko Rantanen right now.
I can't believe back-to-back hat tricks like that. You close out the last series, go into this one, open it up, and you just say, you know what? I've heard all the Nathan McKinnon merchant rumors. I slayed part of that by taking them down with the hat trick in the last one, but I'm not done there. I'm going to keep waltzing through the Western Conference, and he does it last night. It's insane watching him out there. It's not like he's just scoring goals, Jeff. It's like you said, he's got to be on the ice. He's dominating every single time he goes out there. There are times where I look at guys who finish a game with 2-3 goals, and it's like, well, he got a stick on one here, or he was in the right spot on that one. Yeah, sure, those things are involved, but he's physically dominant right now.
And scoring goals, it's not as if he's scoring goals the exact same way every single time, and you say, okay, that's going to get shut down. No, he's scoring goals a lot of different ways. I want to pick up the conversation about Mikko Rantanen and what his season has been like. We'll talk plenty about the Maple Leafs and the 2 games on the go around the NHL this evening. In the meantime, here's what you're going to have on the program today. So thrilled to be with you once again here on the sheet. Thanks for being aboard at this new start time. First for this week, we go back to 3 Eastern next week. Here's what's coming up on the program today. Daily Outline presented as always by our partners at FanDuel. Make every moment more with North America's #1 sports book. Those are our friends. Those are our partners at FanDuel. Coming up on the program today, we'll be joined by the general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, Eric Tulsky. Colby Cohen from Morning Cup of Hockey will stop by. There's a couple of things from this morning's Morning Cup of Hockey that I want to pick up with Colby coming up a little bit later on. We will talk about Toronto and Florida, a number of things there. Most notably, man, Bob has been un-Bob-like, un-playoff Bob-like. We'll get into that. We'll talk about Mikko, because that is Dallas, and the games tonight, there are 2 of them. The Washington Capitals facing off against the Carolina Hurricanes, and then the Vegas Golden Knights look to even things up with the Edmonton Oilers, who just look like they are rolling right now. But one more thing on Rantanen, and this isn't so much about Rantanen as it's going to be about our first guest, who's going to be joining me here in about 10 minutes' time, and that's Eric Tulsky. So the Dallas Stars are beyond happy, obviously, at how things have played out this year. At the beginning of the season, Zach, I talked a lot about how Jim Nill was big game hunting, and he was looking for one big defenseman, and he was looking for one big forward. I had thought that they could do their shopping with one team, and it was going to be the Calgary Flames, and it was going to be Rasmus Andersson and Nazem Kadri. But then the Calgary Flames kept on winning and didn't stop winning and fell just short of a playoff spot, but a really successful season for the Calgary Flames, all things considered. Granlund comes in, Cody Ceci comes in, and then the big one at trade deadline, and that is Mikko Rantanen. The other team that I want to just have a quick discussion on here are the Carolina Hurricanes. And there's been a whole lot of like, oh, what is Carolina doing? How could they make this move before they could sign him? What's going on with the Hurricanes here? Oh, what a disaster. Here's my perspective on it. And I was talking to someone from another team this morning before I came down here to Monumental about how this is all played out and how, unfortunately, the big losers in this one are the Colorado Avalanche, but that the Carolina Hurricanes did more than just fine. If I had told you at the beginning of this season that the Carolina Hurricanes were going to move Martin Necas, who we all know they were going to move anyhow, and Jack Drury, and they were going to pick up Logan Stankoven, Taylor Hall, 2 first-round draft picks, and $6 million in cap space. What would you call that? Because that's what Eric Tulsky and the Carolina Hurricanes did. Now, they used Mikko Rantanen in the process. Not that that was the plan. The plan was to sign him. But again, Necas and Drury in exchange for Stankoven, Hall, $6 million in cap space, and 2 first-round picks. That's a tidy bit of business by our first coming up here.
That was a success. Like, everything about that, I think, was a success. There was a little, I wouldn't even call it like a blip or a failure, but there was just a piece in the middle that's obviously a pretty big one. And you throw in what he's doing right now, you're going to kind of look and go, hey, that guy was there for a moment. But yeah, it was a success. And, I mean, I'm pretty sure we had all heard or thought that, Martin Necas might be on the move from Carolina at some point, whether it was him looking to leave or them looking to move on from him. It wasn't like this was just like a shock that all of a sudden Martin Necas was going to be on the move. And it's like they found a way to get unbelievable return back, lowered salary cap, and a younger player in Logan Stankoven as well. Like a guy who you're probably just going to have for longer here now, and more development opportunity for the guy. He also, by the way, fits really well with the Carolina Hurricanes, which is a team that we talked about the IQ and the intelligence of these guys and on that team and what it takes. He fits really, really well there in Carolina. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a home run, but it sure as hell was a success.
We'll get to Tulsky here when he joins us in about 5 minutes. I am curious about, what he values in a player. Like, because he has like a different set of eyes. He didn't grow up shooting, frozen cow patties off the side of a barn in Swift Current. Like, he comes to hockey from a very, very different path. So he literally, he sees things differently. He thinks differently. I'm curious what he values in a hockey player. We'll get to that in a couple of moments. Meanwhile, the Toronto Maple Leafs heading to Florida with a 2-0 series lead. When you look at last night's game, a couple of things, and we'll get into this with Colby coming up a little bit later on, Colby Cohen. A couple of things jump in. First of all, I thought Joe Woll was good. Can have the discussion as they did on Morning Cup of Hockey about that Alexander Barkov goal and Tanev and maybe providing a screen in front of Joe Woll. But nonetheless, he's come in an interesting situation, and Anthony Stolarz is not traveling to Florida for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Marner was good. Max Pacioretty was good. Max Domi was good as well. Or should I say, again, you're going to say like, oh, can you not just give the Maple Leafs their flowers? They're heading to Sunrise up 2-0. Sergei Bobrovsky hasn't been good. Like that Mitch Marner goal, like after the Florida Panthers tie it up, I don't care who's in front or what the screen, that goal cannot go in at all. Like the story to me so far has been the Florida Panthers, if they're going to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, need better goaltending than what they're getting.
Yes, they do. I think that's fair. It's interesting because I think as that first game went on, he started to heat up and get a lot better and was a lot harder to beat and started to look like he was forming back into like where we could see that playoff Bob. And that concerned me. I think last night there was a few that were just, the Nylander goal, I know it's tricky, it's in tight, and I'm not going to blame him for that one, but that feels like one that he traditionally saves. Jeff, he's on top of it. He goes out and attacks the puck. He takes away the space. That thing's not getting over him. The Marner one is a good point there as well, but it's just there's times where it looks like he's a little bit behind. They do need him to be a lot better, but it's all right. As a Leafs fan, I'll take it. keep it
Are
going.
you starting to see the path for your, like as we just mentioned with the Marner goal, it helps when you can fire balloons through the goaltender. That helps. And that happened yesterday, but still, no panic from this team.
No, I don't look at paths personally. I don't think I've earned that right as a Maple Leafs fan to look at paths that could be coming up and who you'd go through. We learned our lesson with the
measure the
chants in the street.
Measure the bridges
So
for the floats
I won't
underneath.
be doing that. But the one thing I will say is win or lose, whether you lose this series, if you go on to the next and lose that, however this thing may end, when we've heard this team talk about being close, it used to drive me nuts. I never thought they were that close. I felt like, at least by the way they played, the construct, all that was not there. The one thing I'll give them now is that win or lose, however this thing goes, this is what feels like the closest they've been to having like a legitimate shot and a legitimate team. And part of it is just that mental strength that they have. You went down in that game last night, tied it up. Went down 11 seconds into the second period, tied it up. They were unflappable. Like, it did not matter to them what happened. And that's not something we've ever seen of this group, I don't think.
The Evan Rodriguez embellishment call last night, this one split the crowd. Now, there's one very specific reason why I liked it, much like I like the Oscar Sundqvist embellishment call as well, which is in the opening round, we saw so much diving and so much embellishment. I get it. Players are trying to draw penalties. I understand. They're putting themselves in dangerous situations to draw a penalty, trying to enhance or fluff up what just happened in an incident, and they're trying to get a call. I understand that. You go on the power play, you skate back to the bench, and your head coach gives you a cookie. Thank you for helping us get on the power play. I understand why it's done. So even if it's a 50-50, considering what we saw in the first round, the way that it is swinging now is to make the embellishment call on a 50-50 as opposed to not making it. To me, that play was a complete reflection the amount of diving and embellishment we saw in the first round. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if we found out that Stephen Walkom had sent out a memo, had conversations along the lines of no more benefit of the doubt. If it even remotely looks like embellishment, call it every time. Park that. I'm going to pick that one up with Colby Cohen because he might disagree with me on that one coming up after we're done with our next guest who is standing by. He is the general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, up 1-0 on the Washington Capitals in their best of 7. Game 2 goes tonight at Capital One Arena. He is Eric Tulsky, and he joins me on the sheet now. First of all, Eric, how are you today? Thanks for doing this on a game day. By the way, a lot of your predecessors, on not specifically Carolina, but with other teams, won't do interviews on game day. So on behalf of all media, thank you for doing an interview on game day.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm not playing today, so I'll be okay.
That's what I always maintained. But then part of me said, I think that managers don't want to do interviews on game day because they don't want to say anything that's going to lead to anything later on that day. So one, thanks for doing this. I know you're not playing, but thanks for being brave and putting yourself in a situation where I'm sure you don't want to cause, as we like to say in hockey, a distraction. So thanks for doing this. I was mentioning before you came on, Eric, I'm really curious because your path to the NHL is profoundly different than anybody else's around the NHL. Your eyes are much different. Your brain is much different. What do you value in a hockey player? Like, when you look at scouting reports that you get from your scouts, when you look at video from around the world, when you look at NHL players, like, what are you looking for, and what do you value in a player?
Yeah, I mean, so there's two answers to that. One is, in the abstract, I'm looking for players who help their team win. And that can come by creating, it can come by limiting what you give up. Ultimately, the difference between the two is your impact on the game. That's in general. In particular, I'm not trying to rank players across the league. I'm trying to rank players for their fit for our team. So you have to take that and color it with who can do the things that we ask players to do, who's going to look better for us than they would for someone else. and try and make sure we're putting those players higher on the list.
I'm always curious how you see that, because the one thing that I think of when I watch your team is like the Carolina Hurricanes play a lot differently than a lot of other teams around the NHL, and I always wonder, you and your staff, like how do you identify players that you think could work with the Carolina Hurricanes, given the reality of how Rod Brind'Amour has this team playing? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's I'm asking someone to, this is what people do for a living. So maybe I shouldn't be surprised at it. I just think to myself, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could look at a player on another team and go like, you know what? He would fit in Carolina. Essentially I'm asking you is, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's a challenge. And, so our pro scouting group is led by Chris Abbott and Mark Craig. And they and their staff of scouts work hard on this and work hard on thinking about what is it our coaches ask players to do that players on other teams aren't necessarily asked, and what skills show the ability to do that. So we want to be able to watch a defenseman who's playing in a system where he's mostly asked to sort of passively guard the front of the net and evaluate, does he have the instinct to close out when we would ask a player to close out? Does he have the skating ability to get there on time and pressure? That's not an easy thing to do when it's not what he's being asked to do on his current team, but these guys have worked hard on it and I think have gotten very good at sort of building that assessment. And I think it's shown in our results so far.
Your team is a fascinating one, and I like watching it from popcorn row, as we call it, because you really get a sense of what Carolina is trying to do out there. This might be a weird question, but here I go. I remember talking to Mike Futa once when he was working with the Los Angeles Kings and they selected Drew Doughty after Steven Stamkos. And I was like, was there a moment where it really clicked for you that Doughty was going to be your guy? And he said, I like to watch players from all over the rink. And it wasn't until I watched Doughty when he's playing it in Guelph in the OHL, when I watched him from behind the net. And I saw, okay, what was in front of Doughty and what were the choices that he was making? Then it really clicked for me that Doughty was something special. Weird question, but here I go. Do you have a preferred place to watch hockey games around the rink? I know a lot of scouts, all in their black uniforms, as Colby Armstrong calls them, the scout fits, like to be in the corner. But do you have a preferred place to watch hockey?
Depends what I'm watching for. If I'm trying to evaluate players, being higher up is easier because the game slows down as you get higher up. And so it's easier for me to see what's in front of him, what decisions did he make, what decisions did he miss, what didn't he see, if I'm high enough up that the game feels slow to me. If I just want to watch for fun, the lower you get, the more you feel that speed and the more entertaining the game is.
Roster construction is a different thing for different people. When you hear the phrase or the term roster construction, we throw it around liberally. But what does it mean to the Carolina Hurricanes GM?
Yeah, so every year we go into the offseason sort of knowing the places where we think it would be easiest to find an upgrade, and we try to prioritize those, but we try not to pigeonhole ourselves there. So we don't want to miss the chance to get better because it wasn't the thing we were focused on. And so we try to cast a broad net and make sure we know everything that's out there and not get too narrowly focused on needing a certain player type for a certain role. And that can create some opportunities because we get in on players who we might not have otherwise been in on. It also creates some challenges because we are not designing our roster with an eye towards everybody sort of, having this guy's going to be our fourth line left winger. He needs to look like what we think fourth line left wingers look like. And so we have some players who are really skilled and are getting the opportunity to play against sort of players at the bottom half of the other team's lineup and take advantage of that because we haven't pigeonholed ourselves in terms of who we want to put where.
Yeah, I'm curious about, and this is going to sort of fall under the umbrella of analytics. Anyone that I talk to in any analytics department kind of has the same vibe, and that is, look, the way that we measure the game now, it isn't a final destination as much as it is what's the best way to put it? Temporary staging post. Like, this is how we understand and this is how we measure now. And listen, I first got to know you through your work online before you joined an NHL team. And I'm just curious, when you look back at what you were doing online and what you believed about the game to where you're at now, how profoundly different is it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, my understanding is evolving as an individual. I think the analytical community's understanding is evolving as a group. And I think that's true of, the traditional eye test community as well. Like, if you asked 10 years ago what people valued in a defenseman, it would be very different from if you ask what they look for today. I remember maybe it was you actually, I may be quoting your own joke back at you, but somebody had a thing about, if you go back 20 years and you've got a 5'10" player and a 6'6" player and you say one of them's the D and one of them's the goalie and ask which one's which, they're going to get it wrong. And it, like people's perceptions about what you need changes over time, and their perception about how the game works changes over time. And that's always going to keep evolving.
I hate that you know all my cliches.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I hate that you know all of my cliches and my little sayings, but it is true. Like, it has completely flipped. But where, like, I am curious where you think, because I think hockey's going through a sort of transition here once again. I was mentioning the other day here on the show that one coach that I was talking to, I asked, actually it was with Brian McCullen yesterday. I said, one coach that I spoke to, Eric, I said, like, how often does the game really change so you need to adapt? And he said, probably every 5 years. Like, does that sound accurate to you, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's continuous, and I think if you look back 5 or 10 years, it's always going to be different than where it was before. And I think that's true in every sport, right? Like, people are always trying to get an edge, and they're always trying to evolve. And what teams are doing today is different from what they were doing 5 years ago, and what they're looking for to help them do those things is changing along with it. It's part of what makes the amateur draft really hard. Is you're selecting players who are 18 years old and are 5 or 7 years away from hitting their peak and making an impact. And the game might be different then than it is today.
It's such a great point too. And I've always wondered, and this is, contingent on the various ways that we use to measure the game when it comes to the draft specifically, not everybody's playing in the same league. Right? Like, the OHL is different than the USHL, is different than college, is different from Sweden, is like, it's all different. And I'm always curious, like, are there, like, do you have very specific ways, and it would depend year to year, obviously, that you would sort of weigh each league?
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to evaluate players. And so ultimately what you want to be able to do is drill down on that player and evaluate his traits. How good is his skating? How fast is his decision making? How competitive is he? What's hard when you're comparing across leagues is people are taking different tests, right? And watching somebody take a second grade arithmetic test while someone else is taking an algebra test and trying to decide who's better at math is hard. And so you have to be able to account for that context and look for those moments in the lower league where he is actually under the kind of pressure that you're often under in a higher league. And it happens all the time in the higher league. It happens once a game in the lower league, and you need to really key in on that moment because it's your one chance to see, can he make the decisions at that speed? Can he stick handle through someone who's in position there? And that, it's challenging, but it's part of their job, and our scouts are very good at it.
Not sure who said it. Might have been Einstein. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll spend its entire life thinking that it's an idiot. You come, again, like, from a very non-traditional hockey background, and this isn't your first time managing a group of people. But is there anything unique about managing a hockey team versus other places where you've managed?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been in a lot of places where I was with teams of extraordinarily talented people who were very, very driven and wanted to be the best in the world at what they did and wanted to do things that nobody else in the world could do. The competition is a little more direct here than it was in science. In science, we might be racing to get a product to market, but the other company wasn't there in the lab with us trying to screw up our experiments. And, so that creates a little bit of a different feel to the team building. And it creates a little bit different sort of type of personality that is drawn to it, honestly. Like, I think there's a higher level of competitiveness in this field and the personality type that comes with that. But in terms of sort of building the team, it's still sort of the basics of identifying what each person does best and putting them in position to take advantage of those strengths and making sure they understand what's expected of them and get the feedback they need to keep getting better at their job year after year and making a bigger and bigger impact.
It's a busy day for you, so I'm going to leave you after one more question. And this is pretty much just a surrender the floor to Eric Tulsky here. What do you want people to know about the Carolina Hurricanes? For people that may not have had a chance to watch the Carolina Hurricanes this year, what do you think people should know about your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an extremely driven group of people, and I'm sure that's true on every team. It's the say driven league. But I'm staggered by the degree to which you can walk into that room and every single person is giving his all every single night. No matter what the score is, no matter what the situation is, they are going 100% all game long. And the other thing that they're sort of amazing at is afterwards, they can have a relaxed atmosphere and a good time. And, the players seem to genuinely have fun being here and like each other and like the staff. And, that ability to go 100% when you're on the ice, maybe even more if that's possible, and then still, come off the ice and be a normal human and have a fun life, that's an important thing to be able to do.
Is it hard? Like I watch your team and I say, man, this must be really hard to play. Because there's, just playing based on your instincts and reaction. And then there's like this very specific way that your team plays. And I keep thinking to myself, this feels like it would be really hard to play like this. Do you think it's hard to play on the Carolina Hurricanes?
It definitely takes some getting used to. And, some people get into our lineup and within a couple periods, it feels natural to them. And they say this is how they were always meant to play. And some people, it takes a month. And, they're still sort of getting used to like, wait, I'm supposed to go now. I think everybody who we have brought in the last few years has been brought in part because they had that drive and the willingness to do it. So I don't think it's ever been hard from that standpoint for people. But how naturally it comes to them varies from one person to another for sure.
Fascinating team. Eric, thanks so much for stopping by today on a game day. Good luck tonight against the Capitals and good luck the rest of the way. Thanks for this as always.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
There he is, Eric Tulsky. He is the general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. Game 2 tonight at Capital One. It is the Capitals down 1-0 to the Carolina Hurricanes. How do I phrase this? I like watching the Carolina Hurricanes play. They, as we've talked about, Zach, like they play man-to-man all over the ice, and it's really hard. And what they do is they really tire you out. So by the time you get the puck, you don't have much left in your legs to get to the other zone. All you're thinking about is, I got to get off the ice. It does seem like it's a really hard way to play hockey. I do understand that Carolina is an acquired taste. I get it, but I really like it. I really like watching Carolina. All right. Our next guest is standing by. This segment is a presentation of RV Easy. Your motorhome or travel trailer isn't just for getaways. It's a moneymaker on wheels. Most RVs sit parked in the driveway. With RV Easy, you can rent out your motorhome or travel trailer and earn over $20,000 this year. Founded, owned, and operated by Canadians, RV Easy takes care of everything, including full insurance coverage provided for every rental. And best of all, you choose when to rent and set your own pricing. List your RV for free today at rvezy.com. That's rvezy.com. RV Easy. Rent your RV. Make money easy. With that, we'll bring aboard one half of the Impact players, as we like to call them. the Morning Cup of Hockey crew, Johnny Lazarus, and my next guest, the great Colby Cohen. How are you today, Colby?
I'm good. And it was interesting just catching the end of that conversation with Eric Tulsky. And I feel like the word demanding comes to mind, Jeff, when you think about playing for Rod Brind'Amour, but in a good way. Like I think of that as a good thing.
It seems to me that, listen, you played, so you can talk about this with a lot more authority than I can, but I watched the Carolina Hurricanes play, and I think, one, it's got to be really challenging to play man-on-man everywhere. Now, what it does is it opens up a lot of ice, so when they do give up chances, they're usually high-grade chances, and you see that every game with the Hurricanes, because there's a lot of ice available. But having said that, I look at it and I say, it must be so difficult as a player, because you don't just ride on instincts. Like, am I wrong here, Colby, that you watch them play and you think all these guys are thinking, and so much is based on communication that they have to be talking nonstop out there if you're playing on Carolina successfully?
Yeah, no, I think man-on-man defense, it's all about hard work. Like, anybody can actually do it. You just have to be committed to it. I actually think it simplifies things at times, because that, that's my guy. I could follow him all the way up to the blue line if I have to. There's no layered defense where you might have to make a read. And so, like you said, it really can wear a team out, and it can wear certain players out. And I think sometimes it can hurt an offensive defenseman, a guy like Shane Gostisbehere, who's done really well there. But, if you're chasing a guy around, you're not as free to jump up into the play. But he's seemingly made it work. Brent Burns has made it work. Brady Shea made it work for a while. Tony DeAngelo made it work while he was there. So, I think that I think it's about commitment. And I think when you play for Rod Brind'Amour, you're going to be committed, or you're going to be out the door pretty quickly.
I'll tell you, I got a funny text at the Four Nations after
look, and then the third year was a little more of a hybrid between the two. But it's just, first off, good job for you guys to get Eric Tulsky on a playoff game day to jump on the show. Like, obviously,
risky.
There's a lot.
That's
of
risky for him. That's risky for him. That's a lot of GMs don't do that.
So that's pretty good. But it's just, listen, you get a general manager to come on your show and talk about his team. Like, I always want to learn and hear what these guys have to say.
Like, I just want to learn. Like, I am curious about like what he values in a hockey player, right? Because he comes to this, like I've always said, like, you look at Tulsky, he owns 27 patents. Comes to us from the neuroscience world. Like, he's probably, of all the possible jobs he could have in his life, he's probably taken the lowest paying one. He really, really has. When you look at how overly educated he is for the position that he has right now. But I'm just curious, I would always love to see the world with other people's eyeballs. The old say, hey, would you rather fly, or would you rather be able to swim underwater and not have to hold your breath? And I always say neither. I want to see the world the way other people do. Like, I want to watch a hockey game, Colby, the way you watch a hockey game. And I really want to watch a hockey game with Eric Tulsky's eyes. I'm really curious what a guy like him sees. Now, speaking of games, and I want to get to Mikko Rantanen here in a couple of seconds. But before that, you had a really fascinating conversation this morning about that Maple Leafs Florida Panthers game 2 last night. First of all, we'll do reverse pyramid here and start big picture and narrow down. What were the things that jumped out to you right away?
The things that are jumping out to me right away, and I'll talk more about Toronto because they're the story right now, is that the additions to this team are really stepping up in a big way. And we spent a good amount of time talking about some of the smaller plays that Scott Lawton made last night and has made that has been so impactful. And, we talked about how, Max Pacioretty is not the same guy who, was once captain of the Montreal Canadiens, because he's had 2 Achilles surgeries in the last 4 years, but he still has the swagger and he still has the cachet, and you see it, and he's still a big game player. And, you put him and Willie Nylander together, like, it's 2 guys that are fearless. They don't give a shit. Well, they don't care about Matthew Tkachuk. They're not intimidated by Aaron Ekblad at all. And Johnny and I have gone back and forth on this many times on Morning Cuppa. Like, who on the defensive group for Toronto is an intimidatable guy? I don't see one of their 6 that I look at and say they'd be intimidated to go against Matthew Tkachuk and the Panthers.
Not anymore. Once upon a time, Colby, and by the way, feel free to put salt on your tongue anytime here on this program.
Well, I forgot.
Feel free to make it salty.
Like, wait, the TV stuff leaks back in, and you're like, wait, can I swear?
Nah, keep it salty, brother. Keep it salty. I think that's just a maturation and an evolution, because once upon a time, you could intimidate this team. Like, this team would cower because they would be confronted and then they would retreat back into their shells. But I think what you've seen is a team that's grown up now. Will it ultimately be effective? I still don't know, because I've seen this team false start their fans so many times and false start themselves so many times, even going up to Cobb, heading back to Sunrise. You were talking this morning on Morning Cuppa about, I can't see Florida winning 4 out of 5 games. You're like, I just can't see it happening. But I know. I've watched this team for way too long to pick up what you were putting down on that one. We've all seen it before.
It's less about Florida though for me right now. It's more about Toronto. Like, I look at the build of this team and I look at all the contributions they're getting, and Willie Nylander steps up offensively, and Austin Matthews hasn't really entered the series offensively, but he's been really good defensively. Now, I'm in the belief that he needs to be really good on both sides of the puck because he makes a shitload of money. So we expect you to do it on both sides of the puck, but I will keep going back to the 6 men who they call defensemen of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I'm willing to put them up against all the other defensive cores that are still left in the playoffs, including the Vegas Golden Knights, who has, crazy amounts of talents, or the Carolina Hurricanes that have crazy talent. Like, they're big, they're strong, they're not flashy. They move pucks up to the forwards where all the money in their roster sits. Bruce Cassidy used to tell us all the time, guys, they make more than you. Get them the puck, right? Like, get those players the puck, right? It's not for you to have it. It's for them to have it. And I think that the D-Corps has done a really nice job of that. And then you look at the way they've added a little sandpaper up and down the lineup. And again, I picked Florida to win the series before the series started. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I was somebody who picked Toronto. But after watching game 1 and 2, even going back to Florida, I'm really confident in the Toronto Maple Leafs and what they've put down on paper and how they found ways to win, even if maybe last night wasn't a night where they dominated the hockey game, but they found a way to win and they respond.
Again, it's only 2 games into the series, but is the story the Maple Leafs as much as it is Sergei Bobrovsky?
Yeah, I mean, listen, has he played well? No, the goal the Marner goal, like that's a bad goal, right? But I'm a big believer. You make your breaks, and you respond in ways that you need to respond. I mean, I look at the play that Nate Schmidt steps up in the neutral zone, and this could be a disaster, right? Schmidt picks off this pass. They're going back. 4 guys from Toronto are gone. Yeah. Schmidt picks it, but instead Lawton out battles him with his stick, right? And Riley picks it up and kicks it to Lorentz. And your third line makes a highlight reel 2-on-1 play, and you respond, and Domi gets the G-dub-G. Like, you're clicking in so many different ways. I mean, Bobrovsky's not been good, but again, I'm tipping my cap to the Maple Leafs right now more than anything.
Mm-hmm. There was one moment, I was mentioning this earlier, that I kind of look at as part of a bigger picture, and so I didn't mind it as much as a lot of people did, and that is the embellishment call last night. Now, through the first round, and it was every team, and it was every night, there was so much diving. There was so much diving, so much embellishment. I understand the cookie you get when you draw one. I get it. I understand it. We all do. But it's almost as if there was a memo sent out to all the officials that if you're 50-50, players don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. If you think they're embellishing, call embellishing. We saw it with St. Louis, and we saw it last night with the Florida Panthers. And even if I understand he got hit from behind, it wasn't a hard hit. It was a bump into the boards. I get it. But it was it was barely anything. But if you see a player rolling on the ice, I still think this is a reflection of what we saw. Like, pendulums have to overcorrect until they find their equilibrium. And I looked at last night and I said, okay, now they're going to have to overcorrect it to get it back to where it should be. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I didn't think about it, but then I saw you. I don't know. Did you tweet something like that last night when it happened?
No,
did I see that on social media? No. Okay. So
I was too busy tweeting about Rantanen.
I think it's a fair point, Jeff. And when you put it that way, because I think other players see that with Erod last night with Rodriguez, and they go, okay, if they're calling that embellishment, we better rein it in. Like, I think that was a statement call, like you're saying. Yes. And I'm sure the referees will want that one back, because it wasn't. And I know Evan Rodriguez, he's a BU guy. I think he's a pretty honest player. But I also didn't think it was a penalty. Like, I didn't think it was a hit from behind. I thought he was close to the boards. I think you have to be ready for contact there. Scott Lawton finishes his hits. I wasn't throwing my arms up like, how could they not call this a penalty? And, but I think that's a good point by you. Like, I think it's hard to watch that and not agree with what you're saying, because I think that's exactly what that was. That was a message sent to all the players that, diving will not be tolerated, right? Like, sure, that doesn't look great, but this is a hockey play. This is a hockey play, and Rodriguez is fine. He came back a few shifts later, all is fine in the world here.
Again, it's the overcorrection principle, right? It's the pendulum. That's what it is. And it just swung too far the other way. Man, that first round, were there some dives. All right, Mikko Rantanen. So Zach and I were throwing this on before you came on, and like he's on a different level right now. I threw out on Twitter last night, like, this is, the NHL is beer league to him right now. That's what it must feel like when guys get on these heaters. But I was having a conversation with someone from another team today, and we were talking about, this season for Mikko Rantanen and the whirlwind that it was, and who came out winners and who came out losers. And as I look at it, I mean, Colorado are the only team that comes out losing here. Obviously, Dallas has the player, and they are beyond thrilled to have Mikko Rantanen and to have Mikko Rantanen locked up on an extension. We talked, you and I, at the beginning of the season about how Jim Nill was going big game hunting this year, and man, did he go out and get the biggest kill he could find. But the other one, and I'll frame it this way: if I told you at the beginning of the season, Colby, that the Carolina Hurricanes were going to trade Martin Necas, who they're going to trade anyway, almost did in the offseason as well. Yeah, they're going to trade Martin Necas and Jack Drury. Okay, they're going to trade those two. And they were going to get back Logan Stankoven, Taylor Hall, 2 first-round picks, and $6 million in cap space. How would you feel about the Carolina Hurricanes? Because that's what they just did.
Yeah.
And all people are fixated on is, how could you not re-sign Mikko Rantanen? Look what Carolina just did. Yeah. Stankoven, Hall, 2 firsts, $6 million in cap space, got rid of a guy they were getting rid of, and Jack Drury. To me, there were two heists here, one by Dallas, one by Carolina. Just took Mikko Rantanen to get both.
Seemingly worked out for 2 of the 3 teams in this deal. I'll be honest, and I was at fault on this one as well. Like, I looked at Taylor Hall as a bad contract getting thrown into the deal. I didn't really give Taylor Hall the credit for how I thought he could play in that system, Jeff. Like, I didn't see the pace, and I didn't think Taylor Hall at this stage of his career was going to play at the pace in order to survive and thrive, we'll call it, in the Rod Brind'Amour system. And clearly they're happy with what they've seen. They just gave him a very reasonable extension, team reasonable extension, right? So you got to even tack that onto it now that you got another player who's happy to be there, signed for 3 years, manageable, 3 and change number. I mean, come on, like, Tulsky deserves some credit for that as well. And look, I would say this: we got to see where it goes with Logan Stankoven. Like John Butchercross said, Stankoven will have more goals than Necas over the next 5 years. Butchie's pretty good at these types of predictions. He really is. He's had a knack for this for as long as him and I have been friends.
Called Ovi.
And so, exactly, right? He was calling that years and years and years ago. But things look pretty good for Carolina right now. Like it is hard to look at the way that this all worked out and think Carolina, they took a swing, they brought a guy in, they've had success with acclimating players for the most part. And it didn't work out with Rantanen. And so they pivoted. And I give them credit for not being too stubborn and ending up with nothing. Because some managers would have done that. They would have said, I will make this work with this player, so I'm not going to make this second trade. And so I'll give them credit. They didn't sit on their hands. They weren't stubborn about it. They moved on from the player that seemingly didn't seem like a fit there. And everybody right now that was a part of these two of these three teams, both teams feeling pretty good about getting to at least the conference finals and on their side right now, the way things sit.
100%. Moments ago, the Anaheim Ducks made it official. They've hired Joel Quenneville as their next head coach. I had wondered about David Carl to Chicago. I had wondered about David Carl to the Anaheim Ducks. I still think that somewhere down the road, and you know David Carl a lot more than I do, I still think he ends up in the NHL. But Anaheim now find their man. It is Joel Quenneville. So you take him off the board. We now have Chicago, Pittsburgh, Boston, Philadelphia, Seattle, and Vancouver. With coaching vacancies. Do you have a thought on Quenneville to Anaheim? My first thought on it is, I'm pretty sure that the NHL didn't want Quenneville's first team back to be a loud market, to be a big one. And again, no offense to Anaheim, but listen, I think Anaheim's ready to take another step too, but it is not Boston. It is not,
right.
It is not one of the biggies here. Philadelphia. It's not one of the bigger markets here in the NHL. Probably a landing place that the NHL looks at and says, okay, quieter market.
Yeah, I'll say this. I don't know Joe Quenneville well at all, but I would say that I'm happy to see that he's got an opportunity to come back into the National Hockey League because, we don't need to relitigate what happened. It's well out there. It's well known. But what I do know, because I know people that are close to him, are the efforts that he has taken and the steps that he has taken over the last number of years, to educate himself and to figure out where he went wrong and how he could have handled things better and start giving his time back to other areas and working with young players and young people. And look, we can't, in every other walk of life, you make a mistake, you pay a price for it, regardless of what that price may be and what walk of life we're talking about. And then for the most part, we give people a second opportunity. And I think it's a good hire. Joel Quenneville is obviously a good hockey coach. Now, this is going to be a whole different ballgame for him. He's got a bunch of young players, maybe like he did in the early days in Chicago when he took over, and Kane and Taves and these guys were kind of pups. But, he's going to have some talented guys. He's got a hard-nosed GM who certainly teeters probably on the edge of old school more than new school. And, look, I think it was time to reopen the door to him, like Stan Bowman had the door reopened to him. And look, I worked in Chicago, right? I worked there for a couple of seasons. I got to know a lot of people around there. And everything I was told about that whole situation was there was a gentleman at the top, and his last name was McDonough, and he was a dictator. And you walked around on eggshells, whether you were the GM, the head coach, the CEO. That guy ran a dictatorship in Chicago. And so, I think that these people unfortunately acted out of fear in the way that they handled it. They've all since, a number of them, Stan Bowman, Joel Quenneville, have since, come back into the league. And like I said, I am somebody who believes in second chances. And I appreciate all the work that they did to meet with Kyle Beach and talk to Kyle Beach and go through these things, Jeff. And so, again, I'm happy to see a guy like Joel Quenneville get another opportunity.
We just got an interesting question from John Bankart in the chat. Does Taves go to Anaheim to play for Q again? Like, to me, Taves is a big wild card for next season. And if there is a team in the NHL that could use a veteran like Jonathan Taves, you go right down the middle of that team. right? And all these guys that are ready to take that next step, Carlson, McTavish, all of them. I think a lot of teams would benefit from having Jonathan Toews, but that's a really interesting point there too. That is an interesting. Now, is there? I'm going to end on this one, Colby. Is there one coach that's out there right now that you are most curious about? Like, I wonder where Jay Woodcroft ends up here. And I also wonder about, and I'm going to see him here again tonight in game 2, the assistant coach of the Washington Capitals is Mitch Love. I really do wonder, because there's a lot of teams. I'm told there's like 4 or 5 teams that have expressed interest in talking to Mitch Love. I talked to one team last night who said, Mitch Love is, the next big thing in coaching. Everyone's, Spencer Carberry this and Spencer Carberry that, and rightfully so. He's going to win the Jack Adams and he deserves it. He said that the next big thing for young coaches, and Love is 40, is going to be Mitch Love, and he's going to win cups someday. Do you have a coach in the back of your mind? You're like, I'm really curious what this guy ends up.
Well, I think Rick Tocchet is kind of the name, even though it's an obvious one, because I think he's a big domino. I just think there are numerous teams out there that are waiting to see what he does. And I don't know how much longer that window will be open. I saw today that he did interview in Anaheim. Obviously everybody just assumes it's a done deal to Philadelphia, but why hasn't it happened yet? Why, if it was a done deal to Philly, why hasn't it happened yet? You wonder about Tocchet even in Boston. I know Don Sweeney pretty well. I know Rick Tocchet pretty well. I could see that being a relationship that works out, the way those two guys like to do their business. So I just think he's a big domino that once he falls, teams will check down and start moving on to the other ones. I'm also thrilled that David Carl stayed in the NCAA. Like, I hope he got paid some more at Denver. I'm such a big fan and a believer in the job that he does. And so, it's certainly going to be interesting, Jeff, over the next couple of weeks to see what happens down, with these different, coaching vacancies and scenarios and whether it's Chicago or Philly. I mean, these are two teams. I live here in Villanova, and Philly's in my backyard, and obviously I just worked for the Blackhawks for Kyle, with Kyle Davidson for a couple of years. So those are teams that naturally I always keep a close eye to.
Real quick, do you have a thought on Edmonton Vegas tonight? I know we can talk about 97 and 29. Man, Klingberg looks different. All of a sudden, Klingberg looks like 2018 John Klingberg. And the guy, and again, not getting a ton of headlines, but you know what playoff hockey is like. And every time you're out there, hit something. Vasily Podkolzin. Every time Podkolzin is on I think his hits per 60 is like 29.7. It's almost 30. Every time he's out there, he's clubbing everything that comes near him. Like, you can see why they went out and saw something. And when he's playing with Vancouver, like, yeah, we can use this, and we can really use this in the postseason. Do you have a quick and final thought on this series?
Look, I've been highly critical of Edmonton, and they've 5 games in a row rubbed my nose in it. So good for them. They've started to look like a real playoff team, as they did in game 1. But to me, the biggest story is going to be, is Jack Eichel going to be able to find his offensive game while he's worried about shutting down 97? And Vegas is in trouble if Eichel can't. Again, I know he has 6 points. He's got 1 goal, though, in the playoffs. And, one of the goals happened the first 15 seconds of the period when the Eichel-Stone line was on the ice. Like, I say Eichel, but it's really Eichel and Stone playing against 97, which again, like, that to me, like, are you keeping him in check, forcing Edmonton to need depth scoring? And then from there, like, where does the scoring come from? So I think Vegas evens the series up. I don't see them losing 2 in a row on home ice. And I think this is a series that ends up going the distance. I really do. And ultimately, I think the Vegas Golden Knights get through. But at the end of the day, I said this on Morning Cup of Hockey, if we have an Edmonton Oiler Toronto Maple Leaf final, that will be unbelievable. Like, I know that will murder TV ratings in the US, but boy, will that be really awesome to watch.
That would be incredible for Canada. Like, you have honestly, Colby, you have no idea what that would be like for my home country.
Be
wild. the hockey would be fantastic too. The hockey would be tremendous. Listen, thanks as always for stopping by. Love that you guys are doing the extra day during the playoffs. That's fantastic. We'll catch up soon, and curious to see what BU does with all of these CHL players that are all busy, ready to make decisions.
I can tell you right now, we're don't expect to see any of these big name, whether it's Misa, whether it's Martone. Don't expect to see any of them. I think we're pretty much done on Commonwealth Avenue. We do have one kid from the Western Hockey League that is coming. But we're pretty much done and looking forward to watching our boys play next year. And I mean, Sasha Bovair, that was a big get for BU. That kid's a stud. I can't wait to watch him.
Yeah, strong. That's the one thing. Real, a super strong kid. That one kid from the Western League, does his last name rhyme with McKenna?
It does not rhyme with McKenna. We can't afford Gavin McKenna on Commonwealth Avenue. But maybe maybe we could pool our money with BC and we could get him for half a season, something like that.
Split the season. That would be unique. All right, thanks, bud. We'll check back soon. You're the best.
All right.
The great Colby Cohen joins us here on the program. Always go BU. All right. So we got a couple of games on the go around the NHL this evening. Our time is winding down here at Washington. Want to remind you that this program, The Sheet, first of all, thanks for joining me here today again. The Sheet is powered by FanDuel, home of the same game parlay. Make every moment more on FanDuel. FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. Tonight, I'll be at the Carolina-Washington game 2. I'll tell you what, Zach, it's an interesting matchup. And even though when you look at all the stats coming off it, whether it's boxcar numbers, whether it's, the behind the scenes numbers, the analytics for all of it, I know it looked like it was completely tilted in Carolina's favor, but the Washington Capitals led for most of the game. There's one mistake and Alexi Protas finds the back of the net. And the one thing that we've seen about the Carolina Hurricanes too, as they try to get Washington Capitals fans ready for this one too. This is a team before that has been considering their volume shooters, right? This has always been Carolina. They let goalies get warmed up because they shoot from everywhere in all three periods. And I've always been, again, I've never coached a day in my life, but if I did, one of the things that I would wonder about and want my team to do is off the start of a game, not throw a ton of shots from everywhere at the netminder. Don't let the goalie get a feel for the puck. Don't let that goalie start to feel good about themselves, right? It's always like when, the other night when Anthony Stolarz was barfing at the bench and Joe Wall comes in, there's two schools of thought. One, you say, throw a ton of pucks at him because he's cold and they'll go in. But then the other school of thought is, let him stay cold. Be really selective when you let go of the puck. Which way do you slide on that one? Because the Carolina Hurricanes, they warm up goalies in the first place. They fired 96 shot attempts in game 1 for the Hurricanes. Where do you fall on the pepper the cold goalie or let him stay cold debate? Your microphone's off. No, your mic's not on?
Are we good?
There we go.
There now? Is it good?
There
now?
we go. We got you.
All right.
We got you.
I'm in the shoot the puck camp, Jeff. I would rather see shots. I would rather your team throwing shots and getting it on the goaltender, especially when they come into a game like that, like Joseph Woll did, because you don't know how he's going to go early. You don't know if he's going to be shaky, how they're going to kind of hold all that. I understand the thought process of okay, yeah, keep him cold. Don't let him face the shots. But, I mean, you look at last night with, the Marner shot. That's probably one of those ones that you could put in the bucket of it's not really a dangerous shot. It's far outside. It's the muffin coming through. And yet it beats Bob and it goes in and it's the game-winning goal for the Maple Leafs last night. I would much rather that and shoot and the guy makes the saves and force him to make the saves than look back after and be like, well, The shots we took were high danger, but we just didn't get them this time. I want to shoot the puck.
Hey, Nick Caroli here, our producer. Watch this. Hey, Zach, are you trying to say that Mitch Marner took a Carolina Hurricanes shot? Not getting you to bite?
No.
Not getting the Leaf fan to bite? So you're saying like you can see some
good try,
Carolina in Mitch Marner's game? Is that what you're trying to?
I'm focused on the day-to-day, Jeff. I'm focused on the day-to-day. Yeah, every day, Edmonton, one day at a time.
Edmonton Oilers face off against the Vegas Golden Knights later on tonight as well. Mentioned John Klingberg a couple of seconds ago. I really do think that that fourth line's not going to get a whole lot of praise. And Janmark's been really good too. So is Victor Arvidsson in the fourth line capacity. But Vasily Podkolzin is just hammering anything that moves out there. Everyone will focus on the top two lines. But John Klingberg as well. This is a guy that, when he was signed by the Edmonton Oilers, what was it exactly? He played like 2 games and then the Four Nations happened and then came back and got, was it LBI? I'm not sure what the exact injury was. And then it's only like now that he's really been able to string a whole bunch of games together. And I'm not going to go as far as say like, oh, this is 2017, 2018 John Klingberg, but all of a sudden, like he's getting the puck out of his own zone really efficiently. Like that's like prime Dallas Star Klingberg. And he's starting to walk the line. When's the last time you saw Klingberg walk the line the way that he's doing now? All of a sudden, like I know it's never a better team. It's never going to be to its full potential until Matthias Ekholm is back. And him and John Klingberg are much different defensemen. But I can't help but thinking like the reemergence of John Klingberg here, playing with a ton of confidence right now, you can't help but think that that's helped everybody. The main thing is, Colby is saying like those are the guys that make all the money, get them the puck. That's what Klingberg is doing. He's passing the puck to all the guys that make all the money and efficiently and getting the puck down to the other zone. It's been good.
Yeah, I agreed with Colby a lot in terms of like I didn't necessarily believe in this Oilers team, and specifically like looking at the defense group, and you look at what they looked like without Matthias Ekholm, it was cause for concern. And then it's John Klingberg steps up into that role and plays the way he is. You can kind of stop asking the questions about them. Sure, like you probably have some guys in there or like some minute allocations that maybe you look at and you're like, okay, I don't want this guy out there for that matchup at this point. But now you're not having to play your bottom pair like 4 minutes, 5 minutes a night because you're scared to put them on the ice in the same way that they could have been if he wasn't playing the way he is. It's been absolutely massive for them.
Okay, it is, we'll end on this one. And thanks to everybody in the chat. It is, Zach, May the 8th. You know who has a birthday today? Ray Whitney. He's born in 1972. Marcus Pettersson of your Vancouver Canucks, born in 96. Matt Martin is in 89. UC Markkinen. Hey, Oilers fans. Any Oilers fans in here? UC Markkinen? He's a 75. Kevin Hayes is a 92. Eric Jelena is a 91. Lars Eller is an 89. And we're going to go way back into the Wayback Machine. This is a goaltender from your Toronto Maple Leafs who once played 140 games in a row and was the last Maple Leaf goaltender to play every minute of an entire season, Ed Chadwick, who we just lost last year from 1933. And the late Peter McNabb was born on this day as well, as it is Nick Caroli's birthday. And he's spent his birthday week here with me in Washington. And when this show is over, he is out of here faster than you can say Jack the Bear. He has dinner reservations with his beautiful wife, and I know he's looking forward to getting back home. So, Caroli, thanks so much. I know this was a big week for you. Thanks so much for spending it here with me. I know you were thrilled to hang out with me for 3 days. I know that really, really made your week. You don't want to be with your family, beautiful family. No. You'd rather be here with me. Want to thank our guest today, Eric Tulsky, general manager of the
Jeff,
Carolina Hurricanes.
we got to do the ninja. We do.
Oh, I forgot. We got to do ninja today. As I'm wrapping things up, I forgot about our ninja. Okay, so here we go. We have our crispy inbox presented by the Ninja Crispy 4-in-1 portable glass air fryer before we say goodbye.
Meet the first of its kind, the Ninja Crispy portable cooking system. The power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hand, so you can cook big or small batches. Just prep it, crisp it, serve it, and store it all in one.
Okay, it's an all-in-one system that includes 4-quart, 6-cup Tupperware glass containers, 2 storage lids. The Ninja Crispy is thermal shock resistant and can go from frozen to crispy in minutes. With the Crispy Power Pod, you get the power of a full-size air fryer in the palm of your hands. The 4-quart container fits 4 pounds of chicken or veggies. Cook a personal-sized meal in 7 minutes in the 6-cup container. Max crisp, bake, air fry, and re-crisp with the Ninja Crispy. You can prep, cook, and store anything from crispy favorites to one-dish meals. Visit their website in the link in the show, and stay tuned for your chance to win a free Ninja Crispy. What is in the Crispy inbox today, young Zach?
This one comes in from Big Willie Styles. He says, "Hey, civilians, when was the last time a player got back-to-back hat tricks in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Also love the show and the chat. Favorite hockey podcast ever. Sheethead for life." Big Willie Styles, I looked this one up. Jeff, do you know when it was? I'm quizzing you here on this.
I know that Doug Bentley did it, but I don't think that the answer is Doug Bentley. Who is it?
No, it's Yari Curry. 1985. He did it in the conference, the Campbell Conference, I think it was at that time, against the Chicago Blackhawks. And Doug Bentley was the one before him. So those are the last 2, I believe, in the Stanley Cup playoffs that have happened in NHL history.
So Doug Bentley, who would have been, I think, the first Blackhawk to win the scoring title, and his brother Max and his other brother Reg were the first troika of brothers to play together on a line in the NHL. And you know what I think about that? The name Reg, unfortunately, has been lost to history. When's the last time you met a Reg or a Reggie? It's such a great name. And you know what? I'm embarrassed that I didn't call one of my kids Reg.
Okay. So I worked with a guy, and when I started working there, he introduced himself as Reggie. I worked with him for 3 years, and into the second year, late into the second year that I worked with him, I found out his name was Adam.
He just wanted to call himself Reg? He just wanted to call himself Reggie?
I have no idea.
Super cool name. Oh, it is a cool name. It's such a great name. The other great name, and it's similar to Reg. And when you consider, like, this guy is a Hockey Hall of Famer, one of the coolest names of all time, Rogie Vachon. Have you ever met a Rogie? Like, the only Rogie I've ever met in my life is Rogie Vachon, former Los Angeles Kings, both goaltender and general manager, Hall of Famer, standout in the 1976 Canada Cup. Great name. But whenever you like recommending boys' names for people, have you ever recommended Reg or Rogie? Because I'm going to start now. If you're listening to the show and you're pregnant and it's a boy, or if your spouse is pregnant and you know it's a boy, consider Reg. And perhaps if you're French Canadian, consider Rogetien or Rogie. I don't know how we got
in the chat right now
to this. I don't know how we got to this, coming off of Big Willie's email to us in the Crispy inbox, but there it is. Name your children Reg. Especially if you're a hockey.
Yeah, what did you
like? Honestly, like,
what did your wife think of that?
Hey, listen, did I ever tell you the story? Do I have a couple of seconds? I know you want to get out of here because you got to get to the airport. But so for my second kid, okay, for Brody. So what I wanted was, I wanted the name to be Brody Quint, my 2 favorite characters from Jaws. My wife looked at me and said, "We are not naming our son after your 2 favorite characters from Jaws, Quint and Sheriff Brody. It ain't gonna happen." So we compromised, and it became Brody Quinn. But in my mind, he's Brody Quint, my 2 favorite characters from Jaws. Kind of got
you get all the way there. Just took away 1 letter.
I know.
That's good work.
He's like, it's like, you're not naming our child after characters in Jaws. Can you just please stop, you idiots? But I'm close. I wanted Brody Quint, and I got Brody Quinn. Anyhow, enjoy that, Brody. There's the origin story of your name. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to everyone who was in the chat. Thanks to everyone who's listening on their favorite podcast platform. Thanks to Eric Tulsky. Thanks to Colby Cohen. Thank you to the Washington Capitals and everybody here at Monumental for being very gracious hosts. And that starts with, but is not exclusive to, Zach Leonsis, who leads the entire charge here at Washington Capitals and Monumental Media. So thanks to everybody here. Nick, you all packed up? You ready to go, bud? Birthday boy? There we go. Thanks for joining me. Tomorrow we'll be in Florida for games 3 and 4 of the Florida Panthers Toronto Maple Leaf series. Again, the show is on tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern, and then a special Sunday afternoon edition of The Sheet goes 1 o'clock Eastern as well. Stay tuned to the social medias for more information on that. So we're going to another series. Thank you, Washington, for the hospitality. We're off to Florida next. Thanks for joining me. We're back tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern for The Sheet. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.